Today is August the 27th. I'd like to call the meeting of the Salina City Commission to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Jennings.
Here.
Commissioner Angel. Commissioner Crawford. Here. Commissioner Householder.
Here.
Commissioner Shirley. Here.
Would all that are able please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is a point in time in our meeting for a public forum, and that's actually the reason why we're a little late into this session. Our public forum ran a little bit long in our study session. So at this point in time, I would like to invite any citizens that are here to address any concerns to the commission. Please come forward, state your name, address, and share your issue with us. Yeah.
Excuse me, Lou Tryon, 2122 Leland Way. I'm here with the group Salina Cares. It's a grassroots group that started because we are against fluoridation, which is putting fluoride in the Salina water. There's a misunderstanding about fluoride. It can actually be put into three categories. You can have your natural occurring fluoride that's found in the groundwater, which is found all over the world. China and India have such a problem with high levels of fluoride that they have 30 million people with spinal fluorosis, which is severe bone damage. Then the second category would be the pharmaceutical grade. That is the hazardous waste cleaned up, all of the contaminants taken out, except for your fluoride. And the dentists use that. Then we've got the third kind, which is the poisonous, and of course all fluoride is poisonous, but we have the fluoridous hazardous waste from the phosphate fertilizer, aluminum, and nuclear industry. Now, it's the hazardous waste type of fluoride that is put into the Salina water. In order to make fluoride, in order to make fertilizer, you have to have phosphates. Phosphate naturally contains uranium, radium, lead, and arsenic. So when you go put fluoride in your water, you're also adding those contaminants because that's part of this hazardous waste. It is not treated from this factory that's making it. It's just put in tankers and shipped to the distributor, and we go from there, but it is untreated. Fluoride never breaks down. So what you drink today of Salina's water, it has fluoride in it, it's a little bit of poison. Tomorrow you drink some more water, you get some more poison, and so forth. So it is accumulative, and that is the problem. Our whole point is that we would like freedom of choice. Those who would like to have fluoride can go to their dentist and get drops or the treatments or whatever they like. And those of us that do not want fluoride in our water or dental treatments, we can do that. So everybody would be happy and we could have freedom of choice. And that's really what we would like for you to consider. We thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dennis Benoit, 1773 20th Road, outside the town of Canopolis. And I'm here to speak on fluoride. As Lou said, we are a grassroots organization, and our agenda, Salina Cares, for our agenda is pretty much the same as your agenda. Our agenda is we feel that the children of Salina are being harmed today, and that's why we're going to keep coming back here trying to give you this information and try to explain our concern, because I'm sure that's part of the way we do government here. is that you're going to listen to our concern. Well, we're hoping that you will use your leadership skills also, because this is an opportunity. Don't trust everything we say, and then in the same reverse, in that first article about poisonous treatment, you need to see what was done to the American people to pull the wool over their eyes to get fluoridation sold in America. And so a lot of that is still happening with a lot of data, information studies been shut down, sat on, pushed underneath the rug. Anything that they can do, because they, if it's against their benefit, then they're going to do it. So that stuff has gone on. We're just trying to alert you to a concern that we have, and that a lot of people, you suggested to us what we needed to do. We just had Tri-Rivers Fair booth, and it was sort of exhilarating and exhausting, but a lot of people are familiar with fluoride, and they know it's bad, and they're trying to do whatever they can to get away. But a large majority of the people don't even have the faintest idea how many years they've been fluoridating in Salina. It's 44 years. That's a long time. So we're just here to offer you, look at the information. If it's halfway legitimate, I would hope you would err on behalf of our children. We would, because you've been elected to that leadership position, you have the power to stop fluoridation, temporary, until you can find out. But I think the children have been harmed for the last 44 years, and that's why we're here, and we're going to keep coming back, because we are mad that this has happened. And if it is Salina's dirty little secret, that it's the only way it makes sense is if you're a fertilizer plant or aluminum smelting, then it makes billions of dollars and cents to them. And we are being dumped on. We are taking the industrial grade fluoride waste and putting it into our close environment.
Thank you.
I would hope in a year when the people look back, they can put Salina Care into the position of we were part of the solution. And I urgently urge you to look. And if there is a legitimate concern, please use your leadership skills and look out for the people of Salina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission? Seeing none today, we do not have any awards and proclamation. We have no public hearings or items scheduled for a certain time, so we'll move into our consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of August 20th, 2012. Item 6.2, resolution number 126929, appointing members to various boards and commissions.
Are there any items that a commissioner would like pulled from the consent agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move we approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Carries 4-0. We move into development business.
Item 7.1, application number Z12-5, requesting the review and consideration of a possible amendment to the current prohibition of outdoor storage and outdoor display of goods in the C4 district. Sub-item 7.1A, first reading ordinance number 10654.
Mr. Ander.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. This particular application poses the question of whether outdoor merchandise display should be allowed in the downtown business district, and if so, on what basis. And to start with, just to give you background here, the Lee district is on the screen there, and it runs from Prescott to all the way up north of Ash to Elm. Within the Lee district is a smaller area, which is our C4 Central Business District. So the application that's being discussed today, if approved, the area in which it would apply is all this shaded brown area, which is the C4 Central Business District portion of the Lee district. And the Planning Commission and planning staff received information from the Lee District Board of Advisors, and the Lee District Board requested that outside display of goods and merchandise be added to the list of conditional uses in the C4 district in downtown Salina. And this arose out of their interest in supporting a proposed retail business at 113 South Santa Fe, which is wholesale patio store. And so that's the context in which this item came up. And wholesale patio store would like to use the outdoor courtyard area behind their building for display of barbecue grills and other outdoor cooking appliances, and to perhaps in the future use it for cooking demonstrations. And so when there was an inspection involving internal modifications to the building, we had informed the business owner that as presently applied, there would not be any allowance for outdoor display of merchandise. So that is where this text amendment came in. It was initiated by the Planning Commission. So they conducted a public hearing on this request on July 17, 2012, and they recommended that the C4 district regulations be amended to allow retail stores to have an outdoor merchandise display area if it's no larger than the floor area of the store, if it's located on private property, and if it has been approved by the Planning Commission. And so what we are discussing today is whether the zoning text should be amended to allow for that. What you see on the screen is the area which is 113 South Santa Fe, which has a building on the front part and then a fenced-in courtyard in the back. The issue of outdoor activities or service or display in the downtown area has only come up twice before, once in the context of food and beverage service downtown and once in the context of automobile sales. And the City Commission previously decided that they did want to allow for the outdoor food and beverage service, but done as a conditional use. And they decided they did not want to allow for outdoor automobile sales. So while outdoor automobile sales is still prohibited in the downtown area, and this would not open that door. So there were three questions that planning commissioners posed as a result of this. One, could somebody take a vacant lot downtown and just display merchandise outside? And the answer is no. It has to be accessory to some retail store. Could they take a vacant lot and put a small kiosk on it and then have outdoor display? And the answer to that is no. It has to be smaller than the floor area of the retail store. It has to be accessory to that. And then a third question is whether this was opening the door for automobile sales, and the answer to that is no. Outdoor automobile sales lots would still not be allowed under this provision. So just some of the things we noted in our report. Our comprehensive plan says that we should encourage continued infill and redevelopment of downtown with commercial uses and supportive residential uses. And this does require us to periodically look at what our development and use limitations are in the downtown area and adjust for a constantly adjusting marketplace. Our strategic plan says that downtown will be a thriving and vibrant place and will include retail development such as wholesale patio stores, and that we need to revise existing ordinances and policies to accommodate growth and development objectives. So this comes to you with a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission, and so your options would be to concur with their recommendation, and under that alternative, a conditional use permit with surrounding owner notification and a public hearing would be required prior to establishing an outdoor display area. So the Planning Commission would serve as the filter for these areas. The other alternative would be to limit it to the fringe areas of the C4 district and not allow for it on Santa Fe. A third option would be to send this back to the Planning Commission for additional study or public input, or you could vote to maintain the status quo which would mean that the current prohibition on outdoor display of merchandise would remain in place. So this really boils down to what type of business mix and activity you want to encourage in the downtown area. As to the ordinance itself, while the idea was to provide the reader or potential business additional information about what the conditional use process entailed, after further consultation with the city attorney, he felt that the language that went into detail about the Planning Commission notification and public hearing was redundant and did not necessarily belong in this amendment, since it's dealt with in section 42597.2 of the ordinance. So you have at your place there a substitute ordinance that basically eliminates all the extra language about explaining the notification and hearing process, and simply says that it has to be approved as a conditional use in accordance with that section. We do have Phil Klima here from Salina Downtown Inc., representing the Lee District, if you have any questions, or if she may have some additional comments. But I'd be open to any questions you have about the proposed amendment.
Dean, one question I had, I was just reading the provisions again that authorize the outdoor display of, it says, shall in no way be deemed to authorize the outdoor display of automobiles, trailers, and equipment, rental, or the sale of used furniture, appliances, plumbing, housewares, building materials, or similar displays of sales. Do you mean used across the board there? Because my thought would be that a grill might be considered an appliance.
That particular language that's in our report there deals with sidewalk sales,
Okay.
or special promotional, which used to occur pretty regularly in the downtown and not so much anymore, but the purpose of that was to not allow the approval of a downtown sidewalk sale to allow other people, whether they're flea market people
Sure.
or others, to bring in other things to display. So,
Okay, so-
that language there has nothing to do with this provision, which would just allow for outdoor merchandise display for a store.
Okay.
I think the other two things to point out is why hadn't this come up before, and one of the reasons it hasn't is because in most of the downtown area, there's no private property to display
In the front.
merchandise on. I think the other thing I'd point out is that we do have a process for administratively approving sidewalk signs, planters, outdoor furniture, which can be placed on the sidewalk, but that does not include merchandise.
Sure. Okay. That was my only concern.
Mr. Andrew, was there any discussion or concern along the line of that the merchandise be assembled and ready for resale, so that this particular piece of property doesn't look like it, but some of the times such wording leads to people that have things stacked up in boxes and crates with maybe one thing assembled, and then the look or the appearance goes against what the district wants, but hey, that's merchandise. So was there any clarifiers that said that, all of this, the outdoor tables and grills needed to be, assembled and ready for sale, so it's not just adding outside storage without building cover?
Yeah, and there was, and this gets to, which is one of the most difficult distinctions in zoning and zoning administration, and that's the distinction between display and storage. And we were very careful to use, and the Planning Commission tended to use the word display because they did not want items to be stored outside, or to give the implication that you could have those items, anything outside your four walls that would simply be storage. So it would have to be merchandise available for sale. But if it would increase comfort level to make that more specific, I'd be open to any suggestions. I think that's what the Planning Commission understood that they were recommending, but the term merchandise is a broad term and not, one could argue that I have it in boxes and I've got it stacked up here and it's merchandise. So if there's a better word or more descriptive that would give the city commission more comfort, we'd be open to looking at that. But the intent was that it would be actual goods that you would be on display that you could purchase.
Yeah, I guess I don't really know how to word it, but I know like some of the outdoor patio, spa, grill places that aren't there have really large jacuzzis, so they don't fit inside, and they're typically unpackaged, ready to go and be sold, not in a crate.
Well, and maybe Ms. Kleeman knows more specifically in dealing with Mr. Maltby, who has wholesale patio store. His goal was to be able to set up stoves or cookers and demonstrate to people how they would look and how they would be set up and how they could operate, and certainly not to have boxes of merchandise back there.
Yeah, that would be mine as well. I don't have a problem with the request, and if the language that staff feels and Salina Downtown Inc. feels that it's going to prohibit somebody from down the road as saying I can do this, then I'm fine.
Yes, I would defer to Mr. Gage or Mr. Bankston about whether there's a better word than merchandise or if we can be more descriptive.
I think merchandise is probably fine. I was going to ask Dean if we have a definition for merchandise in the zoning code, and if not, we may want to follow with a complementary definition that could be used across the board. You did mention one thing, though, that we may want to look a little bit more at. I'm not sure if it affects necessarily whether you want to act today or not, but there's two aspects. One is the display of the merchandise with the proper definition that gets to where we want to be. The other is actually demonstrating the use of the item may be considered different than simply displaying it for purchase. A lawnmower, for example, might be different, or a grill. Is there something that creates some form of a hazard in that environment or not, and should we look at the exhibition of that merchandise? That's another
That was
question.
one of the things that we discussed with Mr. Maltby, is that if you're talking about like actually having a demonstrated working kitchen, then you're going to have a number of building, health
code,
and fire code related things that would have to actually go into installation of that. So I think that would have to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. But this, in and of itself, would not have the merchandise display. That would take it to a different level if he was actually trying to do a demonstration kitchen or demonstration operating cooking device. Then he was going to have to be working with building services and fire and health issues, because he's going to have essentially an outdoor commercial kitchen.
Well, I'd be comfortable with what we have with the notation that staff will work on the definition with Mr. Maltby to make sure that it addresses his concerns, but also covers
We do not
storage
have a
idea.
specific definition of merchandise in the zoning ordinance, but if we can come back and get one back for your review to see if that covers it, because anytime you're using words like goods or merchandise or things like that and they're not specifically defined, then they can get loose around the edges.
And then I don't want to throw another cog in the wheel, but I don't know what the city's or Lee District's ordinance is on outside stored material, but while this is probably an exception to most, it's kind of hidden. So if you had a bunch of grills and boxes, I would almost feel that we were kind of overstepping our bounds to a property owner's rights to store hidden on his own property inventory. So I don't know. Is there any downtown ordinances that,
Well,
I'm not trying to make this a monster, but
the current ordinance is pretty clear on its face, as Mr. Bankston has indicated in a previous opinion that it doesn't matter whether it's screened or not. It can't be outside the building.
So
And there's no, in the downtown district, there is no exception that allows outdoor storage outside a building, even if it's screened.
Yeah.
And that was what I was wanting to just
Kinda
make
get
sure.
to, yeah.
Didn't have a back door upending in. There's one of those and 70 crates of them, and so it is kind of outside storage. And
This is a very unique
so that was the only.
property.
It is, and that's why I say, most of them wouldn't be like this, but that, with all that hidden from view, I don't think that would be a bad thing, but there's already an ordinance in place, and I did read that earlier, then it's a moot point, so.
So again, Bill Klima is here and may have some additional information for you, or you may have questions of her. This originated at the instigation of the Lee District Board of Advisors that wanted to support this type of retail establishment in the downtown area.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of staff? Do we have anybody here that would like to speak out on the issue? Phil, I don't know if you wanted to speak, or you're more than welcome to any time, but I don't know whether there are any overlying questions.
This is a property, the specific property being requested is unusual because it does have back setback, and from the photos that you saw earlier, they have enclosed that. It's not like it's going to be exposed storage 24/7. So this is a rather unique situation and a very unique retail outlet for our downtown area.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? I'll bring it back to the commission for further discussion and action.
Mayor, I move at this point we adopt ordinance number 12-10654 using staff option 1.
May want to add to that motion as modified. As modified.
Oh, the currently modified,
Yeah,
the
it's currently
definition
modified.
of
Well, also, you've got a modified ordinance in front of you that deleted the references to the notification and public hearing. So that, what you're approving is the language that's modified that says in accordance with the provisions in section 42-597-2.
show me to read the option 1. Is that probably best for you, Greg? Okay. With the commission action to follow staff recommendation 1, that the city commission could concur, we would concur with the recommendation of the planning commission and approve the text amendment as requested, which would add outdoor merchandise display to the list of conditional uses allowed in the C4 district. Under this alternative, a conditional use permit with surrounding property owner notification and public hearing would not be required. Is that right? Correct? Prior to establishing an outdoor display area in the C4 district, under the scenario, the planning commission would serve as the filter determining which locations in downtown are appropriate locations for outdoor merchandise display and which are not. And we should also mention that the description of merchandise will be attached to this.
Did a definition of merchandise will be derived by staff?
Yeah,
Is that something that you were anticipating prior to second reading?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve application Z12-5, first reading, ordinance number 12-10654, as amended and presented, and request for a definition of merchandise prior to second reading. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We'll move on to administration.
Item 8.1, second reading, ordinance number 1010652, amending Chapter 5 regarding alcoholic beverages pertaining to the issuance of a special event alcoholic liquor retailer's permit, clarifying the title and application of a cereal malt beverage retailer's permit, in the sale of cereal malt beverages on licensed premises. Sub-item 8.1A, Resolution Number 126931, adopting guidelines for approving and issuing special events retailer's permit for alcoholic liquor and cereal malt beverages for sale and consumption on public property.
This ordinance 12-10652 was passed on first reading August 13th. Since that time, we received no comments, but there was some action taken by staff. Mr. Schrag, do you want to summarize that action?
Certainly. As we discussed in the study session last Monday, we identified that the statutes deal with cereal malt beverage and alcoholic liquor temporary permits and special permits a little bit differently in different circumstances. And as a result, we identified the need to amend the ordinance from first reading from a delegation of authority to the city manager to allowing for a city commission approval by ordinance of special events involving alcoholic liquor on city streets and sidewalks. And so as a result, the ordinance that you have before you today for second reading accounts for those amendments. Then additionally, because of that review and approval process, we identified the need for review guidelines that staff could apply not only to an application for a special event permit for alcoholic liquor on city streets and sidewalks, but the intention would be to apply that to all special event temporary permits for CMB and alcoholic liquor. And as a result, then, we drafted the attached resolution, and that was based on the discussion that we had in the study session last Monday. And if I could, I'd like to take you to that resolution and just walk you through a few of the wording changes that were in response to the discussion that was had at the study session. In Section 1, the wording remains predominantly the same, basically providing that any event involving the sale of alcoholic liquor or cereal malt beverages located on a city street, alley, road, adjoining sidewalk, or city property is subject to the review and approval guidelines provided in the resolution, and that the scope of a special event is to constitute a community-wide or regional event. And in item number 4, we spoke a little bit about trying to address the nature of the event and the role that cereal malt beverage or alcoholic liquor might play. And so you have revised wording there for your consideration that indicates that those special events shall include complementary elements or activities such that the consumption of cereal malt beverage or alcoholic liquor is not the exclusive or predominant element of the event. That represents staff's best effort to kind of clarify the conversation that we had. In section number 6 and 7, there was some discussion about the reference to proceeds. And I went back and looked at the statutory language, and that is both of those provisions are a direct quote of the statutory language, where it does not further define proceeds as net profits. I think that is the intention, but rather than create any uncertainty between our resolution and the statutes, we left the statutory language in those provisions. In Section 10, we applied a limit of 2 cereal malt beverage events per calendar year, recognizing that these are guidelines. In the event that you had an instance where an applicant merited an additional one, you can take that under consideration. We specifically spoke about the need for specifying the spacing of signs as well as the font and legibility, or the size of the font on signs. So in Section 12, we specified a separation of 20 feet spacing minimum, and then also required as part of the application a submission of a representative sample of the required signage to be utilized, utilizing easily legible text of a font size of 36 or greater. And that actually, I just caught a typo as I was reading that. We can strike utilized and just go with utilizing. And then the last bullet point on that page, as somewhat of a clarification, we enumerated 3 different options for the applicant's consideration with respect to controlling, to prevent possession and or consumption by minors. The first option is physical separation. The second is identification of methods and distinctive containers. Or the third is by another means to be proposed by the applicant for review and consideration. So I hope you find that those edits are responsive to the conversation we had in the study session. As a result, you've got 2 action items before you. One is the ordinance itself. The second is the resolution. Like many other items, you basically we've been able to identify 3 options: to approve it as presented, to amend it as you see fit, to provide additional direction to staff in the process, or to deny it, basically leaving the current provisions in place. Staff would recommend approval of both the second reading of the ordinance as well as resolution number 12-6931. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions of staff? Mr. Bangston, in correct procedural order, we should have a motion for the approval, second reading on the ordinance, and then for a separate motion for the resolution, acceptance of the resolution.
Yes, Mayor, that's correct. I might make one other quick note, if I may. The city clerk has reminded us that the city commission did receive one email in opposition to the ordinance, and that you might wish to note that.
Okay.
Yeah.
This time, are there any further questions for staff? Do we have anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this? And as just noted, we did receive one email notification of somebody that is opposed to the changes that are being presented. We'll bring it back to the commission for further action and any motions.
I move we approve on second reading ordinance number 12-10-652, amending Chapter 5 regarding alcoholic beverages pertaining to the issuance of a special event alcoholic liquor retailer's permit, clarifying the title and application of the cereal malt beverage, retailer's permit, and the sale of cereal malt beverages on licensed premises.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve on second reading ordinance number 12-10-652. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Crawford?
Aye.
Commissioner Householder?
Aye.
Commissioner Shirley?
Aye.
Mayor Jennings?
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
Mayor, I move this time we adopt the resolution 12-6931, adopting guidelines for approving and issuing special events retailer's permit for alcoholic liquor and cereal malt beverage for sale and consumption on public property.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve resolution number 12-6931. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Item 8.2, resolution number 126930, amending resolution number 096681, authorizing and providing for the improvements to Fire Station Number 1 and providing for the payment of costs.
Mr. Franz.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. This resolution gives us the ability to issue bonds if and when necessary to complete the project at the fire station. It increases the authorization for the project from $1,787,000 to $2,270,000, plus the costs of issuance, which normally run on the order of $10,000 to $20,000. That really depends on the degree to which this might be combined with other projects in the same issue, and to some extent, costs are then shared. The amount of additional bonds that would be issued would be on the order of $490,000. Annual cost for service on those bonds would be about $40,000 a year. I'm willing to stand for any questions.
Any questions of staff at this time? Thank you, Mr. Franz. Do you have anybody from the public that would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
I move to approve resolution number 12-6930, amending resolution number 096681, authorizing and providing for the improvements to Station Number 1 in the city of Salina, Kansas, and providing for the payment of the cost thereof.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the passing of resolution number 12-6930, amending resolution number 096681. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Item 8.3, resolution number 126932, authorizing the submittal of an application to the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation for a moderate income housing grant and authorize the mayor to sign the application.
Mr. Hobby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, Commissioners, we have before you today a resolution to set in place a housing rehabilitation grant as offered by Kansas Housing Resources Corporation. The North Central Kansas Regional Planning Commission has worked with a study session and city commissioners this last week, and from that study session, we developed a grant opportunity for us to sign. This is a moderate income housing grant, a little bit different than the community development block grants, and where the income guidelines have changed moderately throughout this grant process. This is more of an open-end grant than what we've had in the last few years, where the details of the community development block grant or the home grant are pretty specific. These are fairly wide open, and so the staff asked for that study session to receive input from the city commissioners. So therefore, we are asking for you to sign a signature on an application for a grant that would allow for $392,000 in grant funds, that being matched with approximately $186,000 in private funding, as well as city match funds for housing rehabilitation, housing demolition, and preparation for those demolition projects to be made into new housing processes. We'll also be looking at volunteers throughout our community to assist us in working in the houses, similar to what you would see in the Habitat for Humanity process, where individuals will be helping reduce the cost to the homeowner themselves. We have with us today Mr. Doug McKinney from the North Central Regional Planning Commission, who has drafted the grant opportunity for us and can answer any specifics for the grant opportunities themselves. Other than that, we feel like this is a great grant opportunity for us to rehabilitate more homes within the community, similar to what we've been doing through the Community Development Block Grant, as well as the Home Grant Program, only under a few more open and wide-range guidelines within the community. We'd ask today that you would consider adopting the resolution authorizing the submittal of the grant application for a moderate income housing grant, and have the mayor sign the appropriate documents today. The staff will stand for any questions, as well as Mr. McKinney is here to help support the grant application itself.
Any questions of staff? Do I have anybody from the public that would like to speak on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I move we approve resolution number 126932, authorizing the submittal of an application to the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation for a moderate income housing grant, and authorize the mayor to sign the application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second approving resolution number 12-6932, authorizing the submittal of the application to the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation for moderate income housing grants, and then authorizing myself to sign the application. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Hoggy and Mr. McKinney.
Absolutely. Thank you both very much. Do we have any other business to come before the commission today?
Mayor, I have one item, if I may. This is an update regarding the petition activity in the community regarding our Chapter 13 provisions, or revisions. I'll basically read this. We have a news release that'll likely be out first thing in the morning, so I'll kind of stick pretty close to it. But on August 21st, there was a petition number 4349 that was filed with the Salina City Clerk. The petitions submitted to the Salina City Commission a proposed ordinance which would repeal Ordinance 12-10639. That ordinance that had previously amended Chapter 13 of the Code, Salina Code, by adding sexual orientation and gender identity as classes protected from discrimination. Recently, on August 24th, the county election officer certified the petition that was signed by the required number of electors in the city, so that's been certified. And as a result, in compliance with Kansas statutes, the City Commission will consider the ordinance called for in the petition at its regular meeting at 4 p.m. Monday, September 10th. We are required to either pass the ordinance which repeals the prior ordinance within 20 days, or if that doesn't occur, call a special election unless a regular city election is to be held within 90 days thereafter. And at such special or regular city election, submit the ordinance without alteration to the vote of the electors of the city. So you have two options that will occur. We looked at September 10th because we obviously don't meet on Labor Day. So you could call a special election, or a special meeting to deal with that issue if you should choose, but we feel you have time to meet the 20-day requirement on September 10th. So that's why we're recommending that as the date. In the, as I mentioned, in the event the city commissioners do not pass the petitioned ordinance repealing prior ordinance number 12-10639, and a special election is necessary, we're coordinating between the city and the county election officer to arrange for the special city election to be called and conducted in conjunction with the November 6th general election. That's a cost savings for the city, and it avoids a separate special election date. So we're comfortable that can happen, and Mr. Merriman has confirmed to me that we can piggyback on that particular date. So I wanted to let you know that we believe that's confirmed. So this is just sort of a preview of a press release. We want to inform the public as early as possible so they're aware of the activity and the dates that are ahead. And also County Clerk and also County Election Officer Don Merriman is here in the audience. He felt if you had any questions of him that he would be happy to answer those for you.
Any questions of staff or county election officer? Thank you.
I do have a question on the wording of whatever would go on the ballot. When can we see that, or?
Commissioner, I think that'd probably be a good question for your council. Typically, it would follow the petition language, but I defer to Mr. Bankston on that.
Yes, certainly Mr. Merriman is correct. We are required by statute to follow the language on the petition. So that is how it would appear on the ballot, and it is simply to repeal the prior ordinance in so many words.
So it's just like it is on the petitions?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, starting where it says, "Shall the following be adopted," and you read as it says on the petition language.
Any other questions? Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Any other business that come before the commission? Yeah, we had notification.
Commissioners, we had initially indicated, I had privately, Mayor, to you, that we would not need the executive session slot on the agenda, but for another purpose, we do need for legal purposes rather than trade secrets.
Okay.
I'm going to probably defer to your legal counsel as to how much time you'd like to take with you on that.
15 minutes, would that be? 15 minutes if we could, Mayor, thank you.
I move to recess into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss with legal counsel matters subject to attorney-client privilege for the reason that public discussion of those matters would waive the privilege and adversely affect the city's interest in the matters, and reconvene at 5:05 p.m.
Second?
Motion and second to move into executive session for legal matters. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? We are now in executive session. Do we anticipate any action?
We would not.
Okay, thank you. We're now in executive session.